Ẹ káàbọ̀ sí ibi àdúrà. Ìyàrá àdúrà tèmi. Welcome, welcome. Ẹ káàbọ̀ is welcome. Yeah, welcome to my prayer room, my sanctuary, my prayer chambers. Let's pray together. Let's feel the life force within us. Let's breathe a little bit. Can we do that? We like to do at least 3 deep breaths together. So that was 2. Welcome. It's good to see you. It's good to have you here. I'm glad that we get this opportunity, this breath, this day, this gift, this ibukum. Lati sheisha tiwa. Lati do our purpose work, to actually be out here doing this work. Y'all are gonna see me transition to full Yoruba. So it's gonna be interesting because I cannot tell you how tired I am of speaking these people's language. There was a woman who did this. I have to get more information. I used to post about her once upon a time, the Yoruba school days. I think her name starts with F. Really, really beautiful woman who moved. She was Black American. She moved to Nigeria and she just became a Yoruba woman, straight up. She had kids there. Like, it's beautiful. I love it. I love that type of story. Identity. So I have a script here because I have a very limited window. So I just want to do like some really basic, like, we've been talking about, I just really want to recap, bring together some of the different ideas that we have been, chewing on in this space and thinking about and engaging with. And I just want to make it more coherent, especially as I work very closely with my daughter right now, and a lot of things are pouring out, right? And, I have a very, specific window, very limited window within which I intend to execute some level of education, right? Some level of examination, even. And so I've talked a bit about conscious parenting and my approach to parenting my daughter. I have had a very unique situation, but not that unique when you think about it across the numbers. But I've been blessed with a village that has really, really stepped up and just really supported us. And so we would not be here without our village. Shout out to my mom and all my parents, my dad, my stepdad, and my sister, Uncle John, the Alius, the Agarbas. We have been blessed because we have a family that's really been like, yo, we don't understand it, but we're going to support you as much as we can, but you need to get a job. So we're very, very fortunate in that. And that is the reason why we have been able to experience this journey. Myself, the shamanic journey, my daughter is sort of the student of the shaman this whole time. We've been gifted with the space to think and intuit and meditate and ask and pray and touch and feel and experience and wonder and interrogate and dance and cry and shapeshift, all the things we've needed to do. So I just thank the divine. I just really want to bring in, just a sense of mental rest and then as much physical rest as we can. And then we're just going to tap into, the divine meditation, the words. I'm going to get as far as I can in this message today, and I will be back as soon as I can to continue and give you more of it, okay? But I hope that you appreciate this conversation around who you really are. We're talking about your soul self. There's a lot of work in psychology and in spirituality and somatics, just dealing with the self, right? Like, who are you and who are you trying to be? Who are you hoping to be? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing being alive? What does being alive actually feel like in your body? There's so many of us that are disconnected from our bodies, that are disconnected from our subconscious, like our spiritual self, that we're not always hearing ourselves. And so we access more and more of the truth, the more we're able to actually hear that silent voice within, right? And that's a gift. And that's a gift of the soul, right? I've been seeing a lot of interesting commentary lately about what percentage of the planet has a soul. And it's been fascinating how frequently that's been popping up for me. Um, but that's a conversation that's been happening, and we can pretend that things are conspiracy theories, or we can ask questions. Just ask questions and see, like, is there any meat here? So I want to just wrap these things together again. You're not who you think you are, you're who you know you are. Identity as the antidote to cultural psychosis. We've been talking about cultural psychosis. I want to see if I can skip to the definition, but all of this work that I do, if you paid attention at all, it's about how do we get free? How do we liberate ourselves? How do we not have to live in terror or under violence anymore, right? And the writing's already on the walls. Those who are really tapped into the future know that the empire is already over. It's just a matter of embodiment at this time. And so, how well are we embodying this truth of the materialization of our liberation such that it becomes an undeniable reality, right? Black quantum futurism, quantum Afro-Nowism, Black speculative arts movement. I mean, there's just a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of foundational introduction that's like, this is liberation theology of the future. That's really what Black futurism is, right? It is a technical meditation. It is a technical, a thoughtful and intentional science of meditating on liberated futures, meditating on the possibilities of what it looks like to not be enslaved. And so we already have the blueprint from so many sources. The question is, where is the embodiment? And so we have a lot of beautiful folks, beautiful people on the internet who give meditation and movement, yoga, dance, right? Like, these are essential technologies for your liberation, especially the more melanated you are, right? And there's a lot of what we just do as human beings that is dance. Like, we don't even have to be, kicking up the feet all the time, right? But there is something very material about, what happens when we move our bodies, right? And what is the healthy, the sort of healthy, like, level of attention we must give to that that care of movement, and moving things through and letting the spirit move through our actual vessel, and so many things. So let me get into it. Liberation from within, that's really the mantra at Noir Labs. That's why we exist, is to operationalize liberation from within. We inspire and operationalize Black liberation from within as far and wide as we can. All right, and we've been doing this for about 7 years officially now. So I'm very proud of our work. It has been very intentional and also has required a strict discipline of faith. Strict medicine of faith. That has been the essential work that I have been doing here. This is what the divine has, created by force or by fire. And so what that looks like for me is to just really pour out what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, what I'm, experiencing. And it's getting to the point where most of the time I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like, I have to get on live and talk about what I'm feeling, what I'm observing in the world. And so shout out to our baby Nolan Wells, shout out to his mother, his father, and just all the people who loved him for real. All you children, all you true friends who are coming out and supporting and looking out for our boy to make sure that the truth gets out. Shout out to y'all. Y'all humans with souls. We love you. Thank you. Thank you for reinforcing the fact that our lives are essential. I don't often say that we matter because, we are the matter. We are the matter. We are the dark matter that they are chasing at CERN. And that's us. The magic. The creation of the universe. We'll get me started. Okay. I'm going to define cultural psychosis. I have just a little bit of time today. And then we're going to talk about identity and how these things connect, right? And we're going to be talking about Nolan and identity and just intellectual, academic, spiritual, cultural, like, information technology. So much to get into. So if you're a professor, if you're Black studies, if you are a writer in this Afrofuturism space, African futurism, speculative futures of any, label, and you are thinking about the technology of these futures. These are conversations that we are always having and love to have. So we just welcome into that space. Cultural psychosis. Cultural psychosis is a condition in which a people become alienated from their own reality. Cultural psychosis is a condition in which people become alienated from their own reality. They inherit stories about themselves that originate in domination or under domination rather than in truth. Over time, these stories begin to feel more real than their own essential memory, their DNA memory that they have to tap into, or tapping into their vessel, their physical body, and appreciating it. This connects to Fanon's divided self, Frantz Fanon, W.E.B. Du Bois's double consciousness, my triple consciousness work done at Yale in African Studies, and then to Black Sacred Futurity, the framework that I am articulating as best as I can in these times. Okay? So when we think about empire, the visual sort of concrete existence of empire is military bases on everybody's land, right? And what do you negotiate to be able to put your own military forces on somebody else's land, right? What are you giving them? What are they giving you? Who is making these kinds of decisions, and what is the benefit to the people who live there? What are these sort of agreements in Congo, in the DR Congo right now? What are these agreements in Sudan? What is literally on paper? What have they agreed to, and then what is actually taking place? So that is the minimum when we're talking about land occupation. And most of the world is occupied one way or the other, especially by a particular institution that we know who I'm talking about, right? So moving from a collapsed empire to a liberated world, what does that look like in our imagination, right? What does it look like to go beyond the occupation of land and understand that before we can even get to that liberated future that we embody, that we have already been occupied in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, as well as our physical bodies. We've been occupied, our land has been occupied, our souls have been occupied, in the sense that we don't have access to them most of the time. I feel like we need some music. What do I want to get through today? So I'm gonna give you some of the sort of section headings for some of this, and then we'll come back to the more detailed information. So we've been so far talking about cultural psychosis, and Fanon and Du Bois, and Black Sacred Futurity, and then we're going to be talking about how empire doesn't just occupy land, right? Looking at Nolan Wells as a doorway into understanding how power and identity and empire and safety and blackness and futurism all sort of correlate. Where do they sort of meet, right? And what does it look like to protect ourselves materially in these immediate moments, as well as to secure our place in the timeline that we desire, right? What does Black security look like? Black security, futurity, okay? So let me see if I want to look at I think we have a proper script in addition to this outline that I'm looking at. So I want to come and see if we can get there, because that'll be good for just keeping me on task. Thank you for the love. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the going to the website and joining the group chats. Portalx.space. You will love it there if you enjoy these conversations. All right, so let's get to the let's get to it. Okay. So y'all, I'm just gonna read the outline, because I don't even see the more detailed version that I thought I had. Okay. And so I'm just going to read this, which is in the description, and then I'm going to get into it. So most of our universities are built on some sort of spiritual tradition originally, right? These sanctuary sessions are inspired by this, which is one of humanity's oldest traditions. The gathering places where intellectual inquiry, spiritual formation, moral imagination, and communal healing were cultivated together. Before knowledge was divided into disciplines, it was often pursued in communities dedicated to the transformation of the whole person. Right? This is why this spiritual work directly correlates with the academic work, directly correlates with the institutional work, directly correlates with the community building work, right? So let's get to the overview and keep it moving. So we talked about what cultural psychosis is. I talked primarily about Nigerian cultural psychosis, and we'll get into the specifics of like what is distinct about Nigerian cultural psychosis. You can check out the couple of videos I did in the last couple of weeks on that. But yeah, so we want to understand empire as not just having occupied land physically and harming our bodies, but also occupying our imaginations, occupying our identity or erasing our identity or corroding our identity such that we don't recognize ourselves, we don't know who we are, right? And so we're going to talk about the difference, the contrast between self-love and self-recognition, self-intimacy, self power, self closeness, like the real true, like loving yourself, like what that really feels like, and what that means for your futurity, how you create futures for yourself. Do you recycle experiences or do you upgrade every cycle? Are you learning? Are you bettering? Are you strengthening? Are you measuring your growth? Are you proud of yourself? How do we make sure we are proud of ourselves and each other? What do we need? So, empire occupies imagination, identity, possibility. What do you think is possible for yourself and for your communities? It teaches people who is beautiful, who is intelligent, who belongs, who deserves safety, who deserves wealth, who deserves to lead, right? Eventually, people begin repeating empire. They begin, colonizing themselves in their thoughts. We do it. We wouldn't be enslaved still if we didn't do that. We colonize ourselves. We repeat empire within. That is the win that empire held on to, and now it's dissolving. So yes, the empire teaches us who deserves to lead, right? And then we begin repeating empire to ourselves, and that is the deepest victory of empire. It's not just military conquest, it's the conquest of the self. This is why we're rebuilding the black self, because the self has been broken. The self has been harmed, the self has been destroyed, the self has been separated. And so we have such a struggle even doing one-to-one intimacy, one-to-one all the time, consistency. It's so hard because we are fighting within ourselves too much. We're trying to conquer that imperial voice in ourselves, and it's work. And so many of us have made a tremendous amount of progress, and I'm super duper proud of us. I'm just really grateful that I get to live at this time and to witness this level of growth and to have contributed to it in my own tiny, tiny way. My own God, blessed my own divine way. So we got less than 8 minutes. So the conquest, they conquered itself, and this is how you get, the situation like Nolan, right? These are people who are bloodthirsty and who just harm and suck and chew up and destroy with ease. What is that? Is that a human soul? Like, how do you operate like that and have any belief in any sort of afterlife or any sort of like divinity? What God could you possibly believe in and be okay with that being your identity continually? Conquest, war, destruction. Who are you? But I don't want to, give more energy to that than I give to the divine, for those of us who are embodying the holiness as much as we possibly can. That we're praying for that strength. Ang gbàdúrà fún ọkàn rere, fún ọkàn tó balẹ̀ lójoojúmọ́. À ń dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run wa. We're giving thanks for our divine, for our creator, for our God. We're praying for peace, rest, joy, goodness, fortune, favor. Àṣẹ lójoojúmọ́, I receive that for me and I receive that for you, all of us. Asha. Community, we are blessed. Okay. So I talked in the last live about the idea that this poor, sweet, beautiful baby was somebody's sacrifice. He struggled, he fought for his life, according to the information being spread by people who are ascribed as being his peers in his high school, people who knew him and were there, right? And there's the notion that these friends of his, these colleagues have gone out and created burner accounts in order to be able to tell the truth because they were being suppressed, right? They were being silenced. It was very hard for them to get their voice out. And so these are the folks who are giving us a bit more to the narrative underground. And these are the voices that are being shared by Black people who are heartbroken, devastated at the loss of such a sweet boy, devastated every single time this happens, and like over it. We're over it. We're tired. You know, we're not gonna keep having this conversation, most of us. People are ready to get buck. Not give you buck. And people have been really disgusting on Twitter, on threads, in my experience lately. There have been some nice little parasites in there trying to harm people, coming with their negative energy. You know, and people, Black folks, stayed on threads for a while because we were able to enjoy safe spaces, right? We rarely interacted with such negativity. And so when you look at the social dilemma and the approach that these folks have taken and their algorithmic design and the types of experiences that we're having. I went to the gas station just the other day, and this sister was so rude to me. I had my head wrapped, you know. I don't know. She was so unfriendly, and I was like, my mind just went FBA, and I'm like, I don't know. She could have just been having a day, but she was very friendly to the white man in front of me, and it seemed like she was going to be friendly to the white man behind me, so I don't know. You know, and I just found it to be so, just, you know, triggering sadness. Like, just, wow, it's just so unfortunate. Like, this is the reality that the parasites have created amongst us, right? Instead of us to look at each other and be like, bruh, we have suffered the same thing, you know? We don't suffer. I don't suffer. Like, really, we have really tried as Black people on this planet. Just from your skin color, people have marked you. You who originated the whole planet, you originated the human race. They want to just like disrespect you. Checking fire anybody, because I have to go. I have to wrap up. So we're thinking about Nolan in the context of identity, identity management, identity formation, identity cultivation, right? This poor sweet baby he was harmed in such a terrible way, allegedly, by people who he thought loved him or his family thought loved him, allegedly. There's so much stuff out there. It's like, how do you know what to believe unless you are up close, you talk to these people, right? So this poor sweet baby was harmed in this way, and people responded. A good number of people that had showed up on my feed, people responded with love and heartbreak and care and good wishes for his parents and just praying for his soul. And then you have folks who said things about like his identity, right? Called his identity into question, right? Marked him as the type of Black that put himself in that position to be harmed in that way, right? And so even that position is its own sort of ideological identity. And a lot of people hold fast to that. And I wonder about the background and experience that leads somebody to that sort of, position, right? So I have to wrap up, but I'm just going to give you a few more things that we're going to be talking about. So the 3 identities, the inherited identity, identity 1, the adapted identity, identity 2, and which is the self that we built, right? The inherited identity is the identities handed to us when we were formed as clay, when we were spoken into our mother's bellies, into our heart, into our spirit, to our father's virility. You understand what I'm saying? So The identity is handed to us: race, gender, religion, nationality, family roles, birth order. That's identity one. Identity two is adapted identity, the self we built to survive, to belong, to avoid punishment, to gain love, to remain legible. The adapted identity. Empire rewards this identity. Families reward this identity often. Institutions reward this identity. Identity three is the soul identity, the one that preceded adaptation. Not the identity you invented, the identity you remembered, identity that is in your cells, in your body. This is where your line lands. You're not, no, it's not supposed to be real. You're not who you think you are. This is where our line lands. You're not who you think you are. You're who you know you are. You're who your body knows you are, remembers that you are, unequivocal, unquestionable. Who are you at your soul level? That's what we're trying to get to, because at that soul level, you unlock your superpower, your divinity, your infinity. You get in touch with that. You do that. You become that person. You do whatever it takes to stay that person and elevate in that person and upgrade from there, right? Continually learning and evolving and expanding and loving more and showing more kindness and more goodness and more sweetness and more patience, more favor, more love, more generosity, right? It's a process. So we're going to do some breath work. I think we took our 3 breaths at the beginning. So if you need to breathe, that's a good way to sort of start back over. Just try to do it as often as you can, or you just get a moment, just at minimum, if you could do that. If you want to, interested in like a 30-minute meditation challenge, like we have our 21 days to liberated habits coming up. We could talk about that. So we're going to talk about Black sacred futurity, and how this is a container for all these questions about the intersection of the soul and the empire, and right, how the soul overcomes the empire, how the spirit, how the divine overcomes the empire. What is that story? What is that medicine? What is that like message? Where did it come from? And where's the imagery that it depicts that right now that we can tap into as soul technology to liberate ourselves from within? You understand what I'm saying? Are you following me? Okay. So Black sacred futurity, and then we're calling for the coalitions of interfaith leaders, like people who really have studied the history of our texts and the identities of the messengers and the impact of these medicines and these messages, and who they've been for and how they've helped and where they've harmed, what harm they've done and how they've been misunderstood. All right, guys, I love you. I gotta run. We're gonna talk very soon. All right.